Okay, so I love it when subscribers ask me questions because it gives me an opportunity not only to make a video that maybe other people are interested in and maybe want to know, but it gives me the opportunity to interact with you, my community, because you're what makes all this possible. And by the way, I'm Friar Tuck. This is my epoch, and I talk about the homeless issue and prepping and nomad life. And so the question that was asked is like, what about winter camping? What about, being outside during the winter? What's it like? What can you tell us about it? That was the gist of the question. And, I have done a couple of winters, like really not bad winters, but Northwest winters up north. And, unless you're like in Seattle, it's rainy and it's cold and it's windy. And that's part of the reason why I started going south whenever I could, because what happens is, especially like if you have to spend long periods of time outside, and usually what happens is once it reaches a certain temperature, usually around like 40 degrees, 35 degrees, they will start opening up the cold weather shelters because, they're not able to offer the proper clothing or attire that would allow you to be able to survive anything colder than that. So, just to be humane, the city will open up day shelters for the winter. So like in a lot of your northern areas, you have your day shelters, your drop-in places where people can just go in there, sit in and warm up. There was some in Cincinnati there. And, but the thing is when you're out there for long periods of time, so like in Oregon, it's raining, it's a drizzle, you've got a coat on, you got your pack on, you got your you got a hat on, you're bundled up as best as you could possibly be bundled up, and it's raining, and it's going to be raining for the next 7-8 days straight, on top of about 10 to 15 mile an hour gusts. And the high for today was like 42 and the low is like 35. Okay, so there's very little temperature fluctuations, but it definitely would, that wind, it'd be a chill that goes through to your bones. And so this is why I became more of a snowbird, because if you're going to ask the winter question, there's different ways to survive in different places. And, some are harsher than others. It just depends upon what your motivations are and what you want to do. Because if you're a home bum, again, there's day shelters, there's, they're going to have overnight shelters, emergency shelters, stuff like that. So unless you're like a hardcore homeless, which there are some out there that will go out there and they know how to survive, they bundle up properly and they're just using what it is that they have on hand, but they manage to stay warm because you find places that are out of the wind, and that adds a few degrees. You find places that are dry, that adds a few degrees. You make sure you set up your barriers, so maybe use some cardboard to kind of wrap around you to kind of help insulate some of the heat. Using the emergency blankets. Like what I showed you from Cincinnati, where you tape them to to the bottom of a tarp, and then place that with a blanket on top of you, and it will reflect the heat and keep you warm. And so that's another thing that you can do to stay outside, but that's only going to keep you down to 0 degrees. Anything colder than that, it's not going to help. And there does come a point when it does get to a certain point of like, okay, it's getting down to like 5 degrees, or it's under 10, it's into single digits. Even the hardcore homeless will go inside. Okay, so when it's cold, there's always going to be some sort of shelter. For I don't know what the reasons that they use to justify it, but it just essentially they're emergency cold weather shelters. They're open when temperatures reach certain points based upon what the region is used to. And the main thing is you're gonna, if you really don't like the cold like me, you're gonna find ways to be able to get inside. So that's why you'll see a lot of homeless hanging out at the library. It's because it's so cold, that's the only place they can go in, and they don't have to pay to stay there. You have little coffee shops where you can sit in because you panhandle enough money to go have a cup of coffee. And you're going to sit in there for about 2 hours because it's going to be the only way in which you can stay warm. Okay, there are different ways in which the homeless try and stay warm, at least for the home bums. Now, when you're out, I did 20 degrees. I did like down to 18 degrees last year, and a lot of it was just my gear, and the outside of my tent froze over like 3 or 4 times. So it's about insulating yourself. A tent offers insulation. At that point in time, you start doing what I like to call thermal math. Okay, so thermal math is, okay, if I have this, like say a sleeping pad, an insulated foam sleeping pad, that right there is going to add 10 degrees. I have something that's going to get me critical down to 20 degrees, so I could probably take it down to about 10 degrees if it really got bad. Or you want something like that's going to go down into negative 10, like I get the $35 sleeping bag at Walmart, which is a 30-degree comfort. But they also have a negative 10 degree one as well. It's red, but it is like, it will keep you it'll keep you warm in sub-zero temperatures if you ever get down to that. And it's affordable, $45 for something like that. Now, it may only last you for about 3 or 4 months, but that's all you need it to last you. And then you just because it's going to be too warm once spring and summer come around for you to even use that bag. So you're just going to end up having to toss it. So some things you're just going to have to keep cycling through on a regular basis, and how you raise that money are different ways. You have the underground homeless economy, you have the above ground, legitimate economy, you've got the under the table economy. You've got all different types of economies where you can make money to be able to deal with this. But as far as the cold and dealing with winter, this is the basic idea. Is you have to really know what it is that's going to add temperature. So that means and the thing is you could talk to the locals, especially if you're new in an area, and you say, okay, what do you guys do to stay warm around here? And they'll tell you all the different spots where you can go warm up during the day and hang out inside. And then they will also, tell you, okay, like you want these emergency blankets. They give, you're probably going to want 3 or 4 of them, 2 under you, 2 on top of you, plus another blanket. And then, you can go stash it here, or whatever it is that you can do. But the local homeless community, if you're new in an area, will be able to share these things with you, because each area, each city has its own way of dealing with the cold, and the homeless themselves create their own unique ways to be able to deal with the cold. Now, there are certain truisms across the board, but for the most part, it's Cincinnati's different than Seattle, than Portland, as far as the way that they do it, because they have, different environments. It rains more in Seattle than it does in Portland, and it rains more in Portland than it does in Cincinnati. So, rain is going to play a big factor. And what ends up happening, especially when you got cold, wet, and rain all mixed up into one, because usually when the cold fronts are coming in, I can feel it out here. When the cold fronts are coming in, you can feel the wind coming from the north, and you know that it's going to get colder and colder. And plus you're getting, 5-10 mile an hour gusts, coming through. And if you're in a big city, you've got those wind tunnels as well, which is, that's brutal it's brutal. And so, you've got that coming through, and it's just, you kind of, you kind of start noticing when it's going to get cold and when it's going to warm up. And so when it warms up, you feel the wind start coming from the south. Okay. And these are things that you learn to pick up just over time, so that you could start preparing. So when you start feeling that wind coming from the north, you should start being prepared that it's going to start cooling down, and so on and so forth. And then you can get prepared. And that's part of the reason why I cycle through gear. I became more of a snowbird. I would, try to go down south as much as possible during the winter, and, up north as much as possible during the summer. Sometimes I'd be stuck in one area either for a year or more, but, you've got to figure out what temperatures you can deal with. Like right now, 50, 60 degrees, that's fine for me. I've been dealing with cold all winter. This has been a really cold winter. This is, last winter wasn't this cold for me. This winter seems like it's much colder. But this is kind of how you deal with the cold and everything else like that. But anyways, I gotta go get Sam. Thanks for watching. You know how to help the channel, become a subscriber. Make sure you share on all media sources, and then everything else is down in the description. Thanks for watching.